The nanny, Ingrid, laughed into her phone, back half turned to the turquoise infinity pool. 3-year-old Leo, in monogrammed swim shorts, stepped onto the wet marble edge and slipped beneath the surface without a sound. Sandra Hayes looked up from wiping a table. She dropped the cloth and ran, plunging into the icy water, fully clothed, shoes and all. She surfaced with the limp child and heaved him onto the deck. Water dripped from her soaked uniform as she rolled him onto his side and delivered firm back pats, until a gush of water and a raw cough broke from his tiny chest. Eleanor Ashford burst through the French doors, barefoot, her face already wrecked.
Leo, is he breathing?
He's coughing. He's breathing. He's okay.
You saved him. My God, you saved my son.
Behind them, Ingrid stood frozen, her phone shattered on the tiles. But Sandra, holding the shivering boy, didn't know that this rescue had just triggered a different kind of alarm, the kind that arrives in black SUVs. The next morning, before the sun had fully burned off the mist, 3 black SUVs rolled silently into the driveway of Grace's modest home.
Sandra, there are 3 black trucks outside. Who are they?
Sandra pulled the curtain aside. 6 men in suits were already walking toward the door, a tall man in a sharp coat at the front. Grace opened the door a crack, but the lead lawyer stepped forward and spoke as if he owned the hallway.
Sandra Hayes, we represent the Ashford family. We have documents that require your immediate attention.
He didn't wait for an invitation. He walked past them into the living room and placed a thick envelope on the coffee table. Sandra stared at the man, the angle of his jaw, the scar above his eyebrow. Her breath stopped. It wasn't a stranger, it was her brother.
Marcus.
I am here as counsel, not as your brother. Sign the NDA, and the check is yours.
Sandra didn't look at the paper. She just looked at the man who had buried their mother without shedding a tear, and her hand stayed far from the pen.
I will not sign a paper that makes me pretend I didn't see a child almost die. Not for any check.
This is what the family wants. Don't make this harder than it needs to be.
Harder? You abandoned our mother to die alone. Now you come here with a bribe? You have no right.
The other lawyers glanced at each other. One quietly stood and moved toward the door, not wanting to witness what was coming.
Sit down, Marcus. You will look me in the eye and account for every year you were gone.
He lowered himself slowly, as if the weight of her words had physical force. His tailored suit suddenly looked too big.
I called you from her room, the night she couldn't speak anymore. You said you'd book a flight. You never showed.
I sent money. I thought that was enough. I was building something.
Money doesn't hold a dying hand, Marcus. It doesn't whisper, I love you.
The remaining lawyers filed out in silence, leaving the 2 of them alone with the unsigned document and the memory of a dead woman between them. Marcus stood up, his jaw trembling. He left the envelope on the table and walked out without looking back.
Who was that man, Sandra? And what on earth did he want?
That was Marcus, my brother. He wanted me to sign a paper and take a check to forget what I saw.
17 years earlier, it was Sandra alone in a hospital room, gripping a hand that had already grown cold. Marcus had promised to come. Instead, he sent a briefcase and a check and disappeared into a corner office.
But that check is $250,000. That could be a fresh start.
A fresh start bought with my silence. That's not a start. That's a cage. I need to know why the Ashfords sent a team of lawyers instead of a simple thank you. I am going back.
Later, she stood on the porch, staring at the printed figure on the draft. $250,000 to make her invisible. She folded it away. She slid the check into her pocket, not to cash it, but to show them. The truth wasn't for sale. The security guard recognized Sandra from the rescue and waved her through the tall wrought iron gate without a word. She walked the long driveway, the check still folded in her pocket, its weight a cold reminder of the morning's betrayal.
Sandra, you came back. Leo's been asking about you. He's eating again, sleeping, thanks to you.
I am glad he's well, but I have to ask. Did you send 6 lawyers to my cousin's house this morning?
Lawyers. No, I only wanted to thank you properly. I don't understand.
Eleanor's face went pale. She grabbed her phone and dialed Richard, her voice sharp the moment he answered.
You sent an NDA to the woman who saved our son without telling me? We'll discuss this when you get home. Sandra, I am so sorry. Richard thought he was protecting us, but this was wrong. Please, sit down.
I'll wait for him. I need to look him in the eye and hear why my silence has a price.
Sandra lowered herself onto the sofa, the check still in her pocket, and waited as Leo toddled over to nestle against her knee. Richard Ashford's car crunched to a stop outside, and he strode in, briefcase still in hand, scanning the room as if calculating a negotiation.
You are the housekeeper. I authorized a standard confidentiality agreement. It's routine, nothing personal.
Routine? You sent my own brother to buy my silence. He abandoned our family once. You made him do it again.
You knew the lead lawyer was her brother, and you still signed off? Richard, this is not how we treat people.
I didn't know. Hayes kept that from me. He just told me he could get it done quietly.
Richard's hand tightened on his phone. He stepped away, dialed, and spoke 2 short sentences before ending the call.
Marcus Hayes, your services are no longer required, effective immediately.
That doesn't fix the damage, Richard. You still tried to erase her.
He just destroyed his own brother's career, and I didn't even ask him to. What does that make me?
Leo whimpered at the raised voices. Sandra pulled him closer, even as the air in the room grew heavier with all that was now broken. That evening, a fist hammered on Grace's door. When she opened it, Marcus stood there, tie gone, shirt collar open, his eyes wild.
You couldn't just sign the paper, could you? You had to destroy everything. My career, my standing.
I didn't destroy you. Richard fired you because he learned who you are, my brother, our mother's son.
I took that case because I saw your name and thought, maybe this was a door, a way back.
A door? You were holding a contract that would lock my mouth shut forever. That's not a door, it's a threat.
I sent money every month after I left. For years, I don't know why it never reached her. I never checked. I just assumed.
You assumed? You left a 15-year-old to scrub floors and watch our mother fade because you assumed?
Sandra's hand shot out and pointed toward the door, her arm trembling.
Get out, Marcus. Come back when you are ready to tell the whole truth, not just the parts that make you feel better.
He opened his mouth as if to speak, then turned and walked out. The door clicked shut, and Sandra pressed her palm against it, breathing hard. She pushed off the door and walked to her room, shutting it softly behind her. From a shelf, she pulled a worn photo of her mother, her smile still whole in the frame.
You always said blood was sacred, Mama. Did you mean his blood too?
Grace knocked and entered, finding Sandra with the photo pressed to her chest.
You can't carry all this alone. Talk to me.
He said he sent money. What if Richard just used him like a tool? What if I blamed the wrong person?
She traced her mother's face with her fingertip, the grief warring with a new, unsettling doubt.
I need to hear the Ashfords out. All of it, before I can decide what to do about Marcus.
She set the photo on her nightstand, next to the folded check she still hadn't destroyed. She decided to go back and listen. But first, she let herself cry. The next morning, Grace opened the door to find Eleanor, Leo bouncing on her hip, her expression a careful mix of hope and apology.
I came because I need to ask you something important. Something that can't wait for Richard to fix his mistakes. Sandra, I want you to be Leo's godmother. Officially. There isn't a single person I trust more.
Godmother? After a check to shut my mouth, now you offer me your child's soul?
I know it's sudden. But when I saw you pull him from that water, I saw a mother's heart. Please, just think about it.
Leo stretched his small arms toward Sandra, and the tight knot in her chest loosened a little. She lifted him into her lap, and he nuzzled into her shoulder, his small hand patting her cheek.
I need to think. This isn't just a title, it's a sacred trust. I can't give you an answer today.
Take all the time you need, but whether you say yes or no, you will always be the woman who saved my son.
She watched them drive away, one hand pressed to the doorframe. A godmother, not invisible, but seen, and that thought shook her more than any check. That afternoon, Sandra slipped into the cool quiet of a small stone church. The stained glass threw colored light across the empty pews.
Mama always said integrity was the only wealth that mattered. Now, I am holding a check that would bury that wealth forever.
She clutched the small silver cross her mother had once worn, the metal warm against her palm.
Becoming his godmother isn't about the Ashfords. It's about that little boy. I can't let their fears steal my capacity to love, but I won't step into that house with a secret. The NDA has to be torn up, and I need to hear Richard say it was wrong.
She imagined her mother's voice, not as a memory, but as a permission. Give without selling yourself.
All right, Mama. I'll say yes. But only if they can meet me in the light. No more shadows.
She opened her eyes, and the heaviness that had lived in her chest since the SUVs arrived felt, for the first time, a little lighter. She folded her hands, not in defeat, but in readiness. She would return to the estate one more time, on her own terms.
They wanted a signature. They'll get an answer instead, and it won't fit on a check.
The next day, Sandra returned to the estate with the NDA folded in her hand and a demand on her lips.
I'll be Leo's godmother, but only if you tear up that NDA right now and promise no more secrets.
That document protects us from lawsuits. You are asking me to strip the family of a shield.
Richard, the only thing protecting our family right now is her. Tear it up.
For a long moment, Richard didn't move. Then he reached across and tore the NDA in two. Sandra watched the pieces fall onto the marble floor, and something tight inside her chest finally unclenched.
I was wrong. I should never have sent that paper. I am sorry.
I never wanted the money. I only needed to know that my voice mattered.
You are seen, Sandra, and you'll never be invisible in this house again.
In the ruins of the paper, meant to silence her, Sandra Hayes became something she'd lost for 17 years. Family. The termination letter arrived on heavy paper, but the words were light enough to burn.
His corner office, his view of the city, all of it gone because he tried to bury his own blood.
He packed his law degree into a cardboard box, the glass already smudged. That evening, he sat in a dim bar, staring into a glass of whiskey.
He'd sent money for years, but he'd never checked if it arrived, just assumed the bureaucracy worked. And now he saw it clearly. The payments were likely swallowed, never reaching her. He'd abandoned them twice, first in body, then in follow-through.
He pulled out a pen and a legal pad in his near-empty office. He wrote until the early hours, line after line of apology and explanation. The letter began. Sandra, I let pride and shame build a wall higher than any courtroom. I am returning the key. He sealed the envelope and left it on the desk. Whatever came next would have to start with the truth. Days passed, and the estate began to feel less like a fortress and more like a place where Sandra could breathe.
You are getting so big, Leo. Soon you'll be telling me stories.
She was still getting used to being seen by Eleanor, by Leo, even by the gardener who now called her by name. But one afternoon, a woman with a notepad and a recorder stopped her at the gate.
A journalist wanted to know about the pool rescue and the NDA that almost followed. Word had already leaked.
You have every right to tell the story. Just be kind.
I won't stay silent, but I won't use my voice to destroy.
She sat in the estate's morning room, the recorder between them, and spoke not of revenge, but of respect.
Every cleaner, every cook, every nanny, they see more than you think. We should honor them, not hide them.
When the interview ended, she felt lighter. as if speaking the truth had finally set part of her free. The article went live on a Friday morning titled, "The Housekeeper Who Saved a Billionaire's Son," and the check they told her never to cash.
She told them everything. She just painted a target on this family.
No, Richard. She painted us as human. The comments are full of people praising her courage and our change of heart.
Sandra's phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from journalists, messages from strangers thanking her for speaking for invisible workers.
You are famous now, cuz. How does it feel?
It feels like I broke a chain, but there's an emptiness too.
Later, Eleanor called to tell her that even Richard had softened after reading the comments himself.
The family was healing, but my own brother was still a ghost. Could I ever reach him?
The national news picked up the story, and a major network invited Sandra for a live segment. She accepted, not for the fame, but to keep the conversation going. And somewhere, she hoped Marcus might hear her voice. 2 days later, in a cramped studio apartment, Marcus Hayes stared at the article on his phone, his jaw tight.
She turned a bribe into a movement, and I am the footnote who tried to stop her.
He scrolled through the supportive comments, each one a small cut to his pride, each one a strange balm. From the drawer, he took the envelope he'd written weeks ago. The ink had dried. The apology hadn't. He tucked it into his jacket and walked out, past the corner diner, to the USPS box. Later, at a small coffee shop, he opened his laptop and started typing not a legal brief, but a resume, the first honest one in years.
He wasn't sure what he was qualified for outside a courtroom, but he'd start with what he could offer. Regret turned into effort.
He applied for 3 pro bono legal aid positions, his fingers trembling over the keyboard.
If she can rebuild, so can I. Even if she never speaks to me again.
He closed the laptop and looked out the window, the weight of 17 years a little lighter now that he was finally carrying it. 3 days after the interview, Grace walked in holding a single envelope, her expression unreadable.
That's his handwriting, Marcus.
She tore it open, fingers trembling. The pages were dense, the ink heavy with regret. "Sandra, I was ashamed of our poverty, so I ran. I sent money but never made sure it reached her. I let you carry the weight alone. I am so sorry." Sandra's tears dripped onto the paper, blurring the words but not the meaning.
What does it say? Is he okay?
He finally told the truth. All of it. 17 years, I believed he didn't care. And now, I don't know what to believe.
She folded the letter carefully, as if it might break, and sat in silence. She wasn't ready to call him, but for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted him gone. 2 days later, Sandra pushed open the door of a quiet cafe and saw Marcus already at a corner table, his coffee untouched.
He looks smaller than he did in that tailored suit. Smaller, but more real. I got your letter. I read every word.
I should have sent that a decade ago. I let shame decide my life. I sent the money to a distant relative who was supposed to pass it on. I never followed up. It was easier to believe I'd done my part.
I did have to scrub floors until my knuckles bled, Marcus. And I hated you for it every night.
For an hour, they spoke of their mother, her laugh, her last days, and the separate griefs they'd never shared.
I won't pretend the past is fixed, but maybe we can start from today. See if our blood can mean something again.
Outside, they stood awkwardly before embracing. A short, tight hug that said more than any words. They walked in opposite directions. But for the first time in 17 years, the distance felt bridgeable. A month later, the Ashford estate bloomed with white flowers and a crowd of journalists, friends, and staff.
Today, we honor the woman who gave my son back to us, not with a check, but with her courage. Sandra Hayes.
Sandra approached the microphone, her hands steady but her heart thundering. The garden fell silent.
I used to believe I was invisible. But being invisible isn't the same as being unseen. Every cleaner, every cook, every nanny, we see everything. This family tried to hide me. Instead, They helped me find my voice. I am proof that the quietest hands can hold the heaviest truth.
Before she could finish, Leo broke from his mother and ran to the stage, clutching a small bouquet of wild flowers.
For you, Auntie Sandra.
At the edge of the crowd, Marcus Hayes stood apart, his jaw working to hold back tears. Pride and regret fought in his chest. Sandra caught his eye for a single second. She didn't smile, but she didn't smile, but she didn't look away. And Marcus understood. The applause rose like a wave, and for the first time, Sandra Hayes stood in the center. Not as a housekeeper, but as the heart of a family remade. As the guests drifted toward the canapes, Richard Ashford found Sandra near the garden roses, away from the noise.
You were right. That NDA was shameful. I was so focused on protecting my name that I nearly smothered yours. Starting Monday, every domestic staff member in my companies will have a fair wage floor and a voice policy. I owe that change to you.
Then the NDA led to something better than silence. Thank you, Richard.
Near the garden gate, Marcus still stood, unsure if he belonged. Eleanor noticed and walked toward him with purpose.
Marcus, you are her brother. Whatever happened before, you are welcome at our table tonight.
I don't deserve that, but I'd be honored.
Sandra, watching from across the lawn, saw the exchange and gave a small, slow nod. That simple gesture was the first time in 17 years she'd included her brother in her life without pain. The family, once secured by lawyers and checks, was now held together by something far stronger. Forgiveness, chosen freely. The dining room was warm with candlelight, but Marcus sat rigid at the far end, as if expecting a summons to leave.
Are you Auntie Sandra's brother? She talks about you.
I am. I hope she told you the good parts.
Sandra looked up from her plate, meeting Marcus's eyes. That glance held a history no words could reach. Quiet laughter began to thread through the meal as Eleanor asked about their mother's cooking.
Mama could burn water, but her cornbread could raise the dead.
Marcus let out a laugh, the first unguarded sound he'd made in 17 years.
Sandra, thank you for letting me sit at this table. I don't have the words for what that means.
You are family, Marcus. That isn't a door I'll lock again.
The evening settled into a quiet sense of restoration, as if the years of silence had finally found their voice. Months later, on a sun-washed afternoon, the same turquoise infinity pool glittered under a quiet sky.
Kick your feet, little man. Just like that.
Her reflection rippled on the water's surface, the same surface that had once swallowed him whole. Now the pool held only laughter and splashing, the memory of fear long since dissolved.
He'll never remember the day he almost drowned. He'll just remember this, the water holding him up.
She had plunged into this pool, a housekeeper. She stood in it now as a godmother, as family. The estate had become home, not by blood, but by the choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. And in teaching a child to swim, she had finally learned to stay afloat herself. The silence she'd been offered was gone. What remained was a voice and a home where she was no longer invisible. On a crisp autumn afternoon, the Ashfords gathered on the garden steps for a family portrait. Sandra stood in the center, Leo perched on her hip, his small arms wrapped around her neck. Eleanor and Richard flanked her, their earlier distance replaced by quiet ease. At the edge, Marcus smiled, a real smile, still learning its place, but no longer hiding. The photographer called out, but for a second, no one moved. They were too busy being whole. The camera clicked, freezing a truth that no check could ever buy. A housekeeper, a billionaire, a brother, a toddler, once divided by secrets, now anchored by grace. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect to see, and sometimes the ones we least expect to forgive are the ones who carry us home.